It's on. We're on. Where's my Zoom? All right, everybody, welcome to our third segment of Ghetto Conversations, the podcast. I want to welcome you guys. I want to welcome my guest. This is Tina Greer, Tina Michelle, to y'all who know and love her. That would be me. This young lady, you know, today, the last time we had our podcast, or the last time that the last segment was really silly. It was a really silly segment. I had some great people on there. We learned a lot. We laughed a lot, but this one is not silly, guys. This is a very serious situation. It's all about education in Texas. And we're interested in getting other perspectives, but our other guests couldn't be here today. So we're just going to move right along with our show, and we will talk about him. Not dog him out, but we're going to talk about him and his program. And then when he has a chance, or when I get the opportunity, I'll have him on and have him let you guys know exactly what his program looks like. That would be Randy Bowman of Dallas, Texas, who is the founder and owner, founder of the At Last program, which houses students who need resources or don't have resources at home. They house those students for a while. And Tina Michelle is an educator. And if you ask me, and I've known this child since I was a child, right? And I say child, but you know, we're the same. It's not. So I've known this young lady though since we were kids, and there are no words to describe who this person is to me. So I'm just going to tell you, this is somebody I love with everything inside of me. She is family and one of the most brilliant minds I've ever met, with a beautiful voice, and who is also blessed with everything that God has to give her. You hear me? And so, y'all, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the awesome, the one and only evangelist, Tina Michelle Greer in the flesh.
It is so good to be here with you. I'm elated, and I really thoroughly appreciate the opportunity to come and just have this conversation and make some collaboration as well on the way concerning the issues that we are facing. And not just that, but the absolute, I believe, answer that's in the earth right now that we have not tapped into. There are a lot of strategic planning still going on, but there are a lot of things that God has already spoken. You know, I can't get away from who he is. And alongside that, I believe that policies and other things are happening now that we don't even know. Some that have been tucked away, information that's hidden that people really didn't know about. So I'm excited about being here.
Well, so I'm gonna dig right in. I had all this whole big spiel built up, but you know me in speeches. You know how I do. I have a whole paper in front of me, and then I do what? I just start talking. It's just me, all Elizabeth Francine. So at this point, I'm really gonna try to squash me, because I really, really, really want my audience to understand, for one, how serious this is for me, but not just me. It's serious for our community, not only in Dallas, not only in Texarkana, but this is a very serious issue in Texas education, period. Because if we allow, at this point, all the things that are happening in our schools to continue to happen, our kids are the ones who are going to suffer. And then our state suffers as well, because they got to grow up. And when they grow up, what are they going to do? What do they know? What have we taught? Right? So one question I have for you, do you see a relationship, or do you believe in a relationship between religion and education?
Oh, definitely. I think that everything that we're doing in education now literally trims from a religious sect or godly principles, everything. When you ask somebody to change or transform their mind or to add information or to add virtue or patience, whether it's character, whether it's retaining information, discerning and putting and predicting and analyzing,
all of that. all of that.
Things are things that are biblically based and have been in the earth forever. I'm very willing to say, because if you study history, most of education started in the house of God or a church or a synagogue. Even the first books that we learned to read when the Puritans started to push reading out, it was Bibles. And so what we understand about a lot of things is that it all works together. So when you start to try to educate or give academic abilities to any human, kid, adult, whatever age, then you cannot rely simply on extrinsic ideas and resources. It's intrinsic. It's the inside of that person that you're actually discipling, training, so that they can engage in information and knowledge. So I definitely believe that it has many spiritual concepts. I believe that many of the things that we see that's wrong, as far as some of the things that's getting in the way, many of the labels that we see in education are not just labels that came because the child was born in the earth.
How do you mean? You mean like these he's ADHD or he has
ADHD, all of the things that we found names for. If we was to go as far back, I mean, what were they then? And we have found ourselves putting names on them: the mute, the deaf, people who think a different way. I believe that it is a cross between. Some of it is definitely oppression, and some of it is our inability to think beyond 5% of our brain to figure out really what's going on. I think it's more spiritual, absolute, that's happening than it is physical or even emotional. We don't understand quite what we're working with when we're working with the human spirit.
Right.
To educate that, that's a deep and wide conversation that we can't get into completely today.
Right.
But when you start to think about, for me as an educator, I take that every day, even when I'm not saying or forcing my faith. I do teach, but I teach by that. And whether my faith is somebody else's faith that's listening today, whatever you believe is what you project. And so definitely I would say that the religious concepts or faith within itself, whatever that faith is, has a direct approach and connection to anybody you're serving in an educational setting. That's what I believe.
Well, I was going to say, well, the opinions expressed here are not necessarily those of Ghetto Conversations, the podcast. However, you're spot on as far as what I believe. I honestly believe you can't have one without the other. I don't believe that you can be someone who does not have some belief in the way you are to approach people and relationships. And to build a rapport with a student means you're building a relationship. To build a rapport with a parent means you're building a relationship. And to bring something into a relationship that is totally benign, I won't even say that, that's totally opposite, of what you've been taught or what you actually stand on. One, you're being a hypocrite. You're not able to give the person that you're teaching what they need because you're not open-minded enough. And in that, along those lines, CRT, honey, do you hear me? I have read so many things on social media that talk about how people, and even with, here we have a Judge Clay Jenkins, right? I'm just going to tell you, Miss Jenkins, I'm sorry. That's my boyfriend. I just love him. He is awesome to me. I think, well, not awesome like God, of course. Oh, of course not. But as not necessarily even a politician, but as a judge, as somebody who really does want to see the success in his county, I think that Judge Clay Jenkins is on the right track. And there are a whole lot of people who disagree with these things that Governor Abbott is sending down. Everybody knows I'm not a fan of Abbott. So if it sounds like I'm not being objective, please just remind me, because I think by now anybody who's seen anything that I've ever written or spoken about Greg Abbott knows I'm nowhere near being a fan. I don't believe in anything he believes in, and I don't think we believe in the same God. I believe in the one and only God. I believe he believes in a God, and I'll leave it at that. But I don't believe that what he is doing is for the benefit of the students that we serve. And for that cause, it's an issue for me. CRT, everybody's making this huge deal over it, but if we are teaching what's true and what's right in the beginning, if that had been going on from the beginning, you wouldn't even have to give it a name. And there's another one of those labels. You don't have to give it a name. It is truth. It already has a name, but you don't want that taught because you know it reflects badly on you. So those people who make the argument, oh my, why don't you leave that alone? That happened so far in the past. Right. So why do you need to hide it? If it happened so far in the past that you can't be held responsible for it, that's fine. But it still needs to be known. Then if you don't feel some type of responsibility for that, why are you mad? Right? That's my take. So what do you think?
Well, I'll say this. Not only with CRT, I want to say that first, but you cannot fix a gunshot wound with a Band-Aid.
Okay.
You can't create things and leave a gaping hole and just say, this one thing created this one thing. So to fix it all, we're going to go back and I'm going to create a policy, a law, or compile some words or another acronym to fix it. When I look at it, to me, what it does is it's a force of will with no real idea of how things can change in reality.
Right.
Because it doesn't even deal with a root base, because we're not even talking about why do we need that? Why are we constructing it in the very first beginning?
So what I hear you saying is the people who are upset, and that's me saying that's my part. The people who are upset then are upset baselessly. You don't even want to get to the foundation of why there is this particular narrative, why there is this particular conversation. If you don't get to the foundation, it's just like a house. You can keep building on that house, that foundation for years and years and years. But if it is not solid, if it's not what it was supposed to be from the beginning, it's only going to fall apart, and that's just a matter of time. It should.
I think so. I think what it does, it checks a box. The people want something, give them something, which in theory is what we have done with a lot of things. Our kids are not doing well, give them another test. Our teachers are not doing well, test them too. We don't see this happen, so do this. We don't ever go back and figure out the real reason why. So a lot of things just can't be done with data control.
Say that again for the people in the back.
If that's the truth, then when we get these samples with CRT, everything else, when we get the sample back batch for we thought this would work, when it's not working, are we gonna get rid of it?
Right.
Are we gonna add another MRT or DRT, or do we come back and say, no, now that's not working, we need to add this? Let's go back to your very first question to me. There is no replacement when the foundational truth of how spirits live together in the earth, when that's not there, how we educate, how we handle ourselves, it'll never go away. The way you see a kid when they come in a classroom, let's just go to a scenario. How I judge them through my lens is going to be how I teach them, how I evaluate their outcomes, Absolutely. How I see their future. If I don't have the correct lens, I'll adapt to anything I read. It's research based. Is it research based for this culture, for this diverse group? Who is this for? Who is this for? And even though you're saying we believe this work and we got the best analysts, are you dealing with people that's looking through the right lenses to even create these ideas? Because what your lens that you look through may not be the correct lens for the population that you're serving. And I do not believe that we're willing to say, equity is important. Equity is just very important. And when we start to create ideas
Excuse me.
that take us away from equity and what that looks like.
Mhm.
When we look at human nature and the human spirit, it's two different things. And as an educator, I look that way. There are kids that walk through my door that I have a high expectation for all of them.
Absolutely.
But I have to give equity in my classroom or with their parents in my thinking in order to handle all of them the right way. If not, I start to poorly accommodate. I poorly accommodate them. I accommodate based on my list of thought, my experiences, which is what I think CRT does, which is what now, I mean, let me say this. There's not, everybody said, but there's not one plan to fix everything. It's not. But when we put any plan in place, we need to know who that is for. You know, it's almost like there are some people, it does not matter. There are some people who can drink a glass of wine, let's just say that, and never ever, they're not gonna get drunk because they don't want to be drinkers. They don't want to be drunk. They only drink it because they like to drink, they like to cleanse their palates after a steak. Then there are some people that if they get one bottle, they gotta have another one, have another, another until they're drunken. That's two different people. So I can't create standards for the person who just knows and adapts to the taste of one drink and one who is choosing to use that to blindly to maybe silence anger or hate or to deal with pain.
Right.
So when I say this, I'll say, and that's one of my big pet peeves in education. We have did one size fit all. One size fit all.
The problem with one size fit all, though, is that it doesn't. There are too many demographics that need to be covered. And then we have demographics that are now growing into separate. You know, you have, for instance, you may have in South Dallas, God, there's so much diversity where people think there is absolutely none. They think all the students there are just African-American, all the students there are low income, all the students there are low achieving. That is not true. It's not true anywhere, I don't think, but I know specifically in South Dallas, it's not that way. But then there are just, there are differences made. You're going to look at these people at even within that one demographic where you have, and I'm going to call names of schools, but this is not, I'm calling them because I'm familiar with them. So DISD and all y'all don't start tripping. I'm calling names as an example. Okay. Now take Charles Rice, where I used to work, and you take JJ Rhodes. Both of those schools have similar demographics. In fact, if you just at first glance, and if you look at the data, they probably have, I mean, like almost identical demographics, regardless of the principal, regardless of the staff. And that is because the funding makes a difference. There's no equity in funding. You understand what I'm saying? Across the board, equity and equality, people get those confused.
Absolutely.
So equity is something totally different from equality, guys. So everybody wants to be treated equally, right? But to have equity is for everybody to get the same share. And the only way to get the same share is to place people on the same level from the beginning.
Right.
You can't start out saying, okay, this child, I'm going to teach this child this way. I'm going to give more attention to this child because I know this child is going to make it. I can see that because through this lens that I'm looking through, I see a bright child. I see a person who has questions. I see someone who takes initiative. Okay, you can say that. When does it become your job to pull this out of the person that you don't see it in?
Yes.
Because essentially that's your job. You got to teach them how to learn. Right. And if you're not giving them, if you're not being equitable in that teaching, if you're not giving them a foundation, and if you ain't putting some God in it every now and then, and don't lie, teachers in Texas, you know, you're putting God in it, quit lying. So if you're not putting some God in it, you're not helping them. If you're not doing at least those three things, you're not helping them.
The inspirational point of any teaching, you know, I tell people all the time, I know a lot, I know many high yielding instructional strategies that I love and use. I create them. I've read many books. My favorite on the brain, you know, best practices, brain research, you know, all of the SEL studies. I love all of that.
I was going to get into SEL next. That was the next thing I was going to ask you about.
all of it. My best, I can never, me personally, I can never walk in the room and make any of that work. The gasoline for any of those, for my engine of work, is always spiritually based.
Mm.
It is always my faith. Do I believe? If you
Because
just
that's
look
what
at
you
it like,
take in with you, though, right?
yeah. I mean, and the thing is, when I look at the difference between me and the person that's not having that success, generally it's their faith or the lack thereof. It is not where the kids come from. It's their inability to have a system in place that causes them to congregate around an idea that supports what their job is, which is to make
Right.
students successful. If I have nothing that's pushing me, then guess what? Then you're coming to school too to get what the kids coming to get. Somebody to inspire them, motivate them,
Ah,
direct them, guide them, build them, transform their mind, transform their lives, transform their thinking. If the teacher and student are there both at the same time, needing the same
or
thing,
the
because
same.
they're
Oh.
a broken child teaching with a degree. Because, you know,
She said a broken child teaching with a degree. Lord have
because a
mercy.
lot of times, a lot of teachers that you see, they teach because they say, I want to become a teacher because this happened to me, but they never are healed. They're never whole. So you can work with a certain group of kids, but you can't work with everybody. One of my pet peeves and one of the things I hate the most, we have a million programs for kids who we don't think is going to be successful. We have none for those who we think can. Kids that we think can be successful, if you're in the mid, if you are caught in the families who that are caught into mid average income, if you're in that group, your parents, and they can pay the bills, but they can't afford soccer, dance. They can't put you in a different stream. Those kids they're kind of forgotten. We have scholarships, extra programs, tutorials for all of the kids who are maybe we think are failing, but we don't cause those. Okay, if you can get to the if you're in the land of little, everybody sees you. If you're in the land of even, nobody sees you. If you're in the land where you're in poverty, people talk about that, even if it's not always positive, negative. If you're in the land of too much, you got a lot going on. People talk about you, but a lot of those kids stuck in the middle, they slip back into poverty and never get pushed over into excellence because nobody sees them.
Because they slip back into a poverty mindset. That is a
Absolutely.
whole mindset, baby. So
Yes,
when
it
they're
is.
slipping backwards into poverty, they're not only taking back on the physical aspect of it, they're taking on the mental and how they feel, the insecurities, the inadequacies. Those things follow those kids.
And what happens is, to me, I've seen this because I'm a single mother who I was able to, for a very long time, maintain,
Right.
but even though we were able to maintain we were not poor, what we look at, like not able to get our food and shelter.
Right.
We were okay. But at the same time, and my boys was caught in the middle. Very, very intelligent, gifted, all of that. But at the same time, we don't look at the average side of them may have come from other dynamics. You talked about diversity. And we talk about diversity in the culture. And so when we look at race, and when we just look at race and we look at economic status, it's not enough. Diversity it goes so farther, like whether or not these kids have what they've been exposed to, their faith. Some of them have a faith that doesn't allow them to do other things and take the kind of risk that other kids did take,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So they're not seen that way. Everybody looks at that kid in the middle and say they're going to be all right. Those are the kids I have had a heart for. I've taught the gifted and talented program for years. I've taught the students who was not going to, that was not having success, that had obvious educational gaps for years. And what I saw is that more of the kids in the middle, right? They were,
Right.
again, as we have spoken about, they were not able to excel. They ran out of gas in the middle, and so they ended up. And I wanted to bring that up because What we have done in education now is to identify kids where we think they are. And if you are high enough to get checked off the box and say they got enough to make it, you get checked off the box. If you came out your mama's womb intellectual being that could read and blah, blah, you good. But, and if you came out almost and now this is what they say, they almost got it. Now you better hurry up and get it, because if not, you're going back. We thought you was going to be something. See, we thought you was going to get that child was started out. And so this is when the labels start happening.
Right.
Unexpected. It's so unexpected. He knew his colors, he knew his shapes, and he could read. Mom and them happy. And then all of a sudden, when they get to the middle, where it requires a teacher who is spirited, inspired, and on fire, and says, oh, where you at? Let me push you. When it requires that, and it requires somebody to channel in energy and do more than teach a standard.
Right.
Teach a standard with fire.
Absolutely.
And passion and understanding of where this kid is probably going to go with discernment. When that doesn't happen, that kid goes back and that's when the gaps start forming. Unless that kid himself finds enough intrinsic value to say, I want that over there, and I'm going for it by myself, and learn how to fly when they said all you could do was run.
Right.
I've experienced it a million times. And coming on today, that was one of my things that I really felt really, heavy about, because in education now with COVID, with all of the things with people, we got, we had the test, we could call it bias. Now we got COVID that said we got, because of COVID, we can't educate. Let me just tell you something. There's some education was failing before the test, before COVID, and before all of these things happened. We have not been successful in a very long time in most public school settings to do the right things for our kids.
That's true.
Across the nation, on an average, you got to pick your kid's teacher. You got to pick the right class. You got to pick the right school. You got to move them 5 times to get 5 good grades in a row of good education. Because of that, and the only thing we're doing is creating another policy, another compilation, dangling something in front of it. And the worst thing that hurts my heart the most is COVID, the test. All of those things has given us an excuse not to be educators.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%.
I don't think it should be held over the head. I'm not pushing a test. I'm just saying, if it's not going to go away, the kid should not suffer just because it's there. We have stopped educating because I can just use this as an excuse. COVID is here, so we shouldn't expect much. The test is here and it's biased, so we shouldn't expect much.
Let me tell you something about, I hear exactly what you're saying. I don't know where I stand. I ain't gonna say I don't know where I stand. I don't know if I'm certain that we necessarily agree on. Well, let me just say this. I agree 100% that these have been excuses, and perhaps where it says he be weeding out. He's gonna separate. You know what I'm saying? The wheat from the tare. Here's the thing. You guys need to, we as educators need to understand you signed up for something. Right. And now wait, before you folks get to hollering, I'm a hypocrite or whatever. I didn't sign up to be intimidated, harassed to the extent of being physically ill and having to quit my job. I didn't sign up for that, but I did sign up for doing it until I couldn't anymore, and making sure every student that I impacted understood that you are one, God loves you. And because I know God, I love you. I don't need another reason. But I'm starting there because that's called SEL. That's what they call SEL. We're going to start there. But even beyond that, sweetie, if I'm teaching you something. And I think this was the point I wanted to make. I'm not that I believe in teaching to the test, because I absolutely do not. I do believe in, however, teaching what you know is going to be needed on that test that they're going to take when they get ready to get a job. These test taking skills are important because everything is digital. Everything is electronic. You're going to have to type it in at some point. The skills that I try to teach, even my publishing clients, those are important skills. You need to understand how to edit a letter to the extent that you're able to convince somebody hey, I deserve to have this job, or I deserve to get this grant, or I deserve to be the one who gains this fellowship because I'm able to do this. If we're not teaching our kids how to stand up and be accountable, be comfortable in what they're learning, and learn how to ask questions. If we don't teach that, we're just really just kind of blowing in the wind anyway. Because I don't think.
I'm gonna throw something in where you were talking before you would go too far.
Go ahead.
You know, when I heard you talk about the emotional side of this and how it impacts a teacher, you know, not able to sharpen our own saws.
Mm-hmm.
That is why I said this. This is I teach every day with like my hair is on fire. And this is what
I love that.
I'll say this. I don't care about, you know, this is what I tell people. COVID is out there. Until you shut the door, if I'm coming to work, I'm gonna teach. I'm not gonna let you drive me crazy. I don't intend to do that. And I'm not gonna use no excuse, because when I wake up to be a teacher, you would never dictate to me how that's done. That is why the basis and foundation of your faith system has to be a driving force. There are some things that, you know, you give me the standards, and if the standards will cause them to pass the test, guess what? They're gonna pass it because I'm gonna teach the standards.
Right. If
the standards that you give me and I teach them to fidelity don't help them pass the test, you need to look at your test, because I'm going to teach standards. Because I'm not going to teach. I'm not going to, I pride myself on the fact that I would always say, if they don't know about whatever the reporting categories is on the test by December, we should know that. If it's in there, if it's rolled out in that YAG by December, we're done. Right. Now I'm going to teach it with fidelity. However, I am not going to hold myself accountable or responsible. Now I will tell my kids this. If you didn't learn it, maybe I didn't teach it, let me teach it again. However, if you and I both were not able to conquer it, perhaps it is something that is flawed or an exception to the idea of learning this particular factor, or the way it's being tested or seen. Now, I said all that to say this. I know many people who are being medicated and sick and burnt out. They're trying to design their life. Because when I say as an educator, this is what you are: a contracted employee who chose to give your life in assignment as an educator. I'm not talking about a teacher who works for a school. I'm talking about somebody who said, if I'm in the middle of the street, I'm educating. And and when I walk into a campus and I try to meet that campus needs with diligence, you know, because you want to get to the social emotional side of this. We often think about the kids, where they come from, the impact this journey has on them, the trauma, how when they're frightened, they cannot function. When teachers and educators are frightened, abused, misused, devalued, they can't function either.
At all.
They can't function either. It causes so many things to happen. And life itself, you have to think about this, because
what is happening? I apologize. I don't know what's going on. It just, the thing just, I'm trying to turn it off and it just, I hate that. You're in the middle of talking.
You're fine. The emotions behind our teaching and our why, you know, sometimes if we're not careful, lend to us to physically, not ever be able to settle physically in our body, you know. But when you are scorned by the state, by laws, by policies that nobody believes in the first place, and you work in districts that do not take that in consideration, but at the same time, they want you to do something that they don't believe, so there are no resources, there's no opportunities. People are walking away from the field, and so you're actually double timing. Or people see your value, your worth, and they mishandle and misuse your why, and you're not willing. That brings a tug of war in your soul. You at that point will not struggle inwardly, but you'll struggle outwardly to be produced as a teacher, educator, classroom leader, instructional designer, to get the best out of you and that kid. And I wanted to say that because when you brought that up, many times people say, you know, because of what we've had decisions we make, and I've made some, I just made one. That doesn't mean I don't believe that students should be educated. I just know that ain't nobody gonna dictate to me as an educator how that happens for my life. how that happens with my gifts. Because at the end of the day, I want to say this for anybody that listens, as a parent, as an educator, as somebody in the field pushing that kids deserve success. You got to have it both ways. Teachers do too. Kids deserve to be loved and valued. Teachers do too. Educators do too. And it works hand in hand like a glove. And so responsibly, the same respect that we want from our students in the classroom is the same respect and willingness that we have to have from public leaders that are making decisions about our why, my why. Now, here's the difference. I made a decision. Francis, I have decided. You may decide something about the work as far as the design of the job description, but you'll never define, you will not define my why. My why and why I do what I do.
That was the problem, though. That was the problem, Tina. My why is always the child. It's always, I was given this task. God told me when I was younger than 9 years old, yes, you have I ain't listen. I ain't do what God told me to do. I did in the beginning. I did it when I was with my family in Texarkana. I did, but when it got to where I thought I was grown enough to walk out here and do this on my own, I stopped. I mean, as a child, and you know this yourself, as a teenager, I taught Sunday school. I taught vacation Bible school. I excuse me, I had a Bible drill team. Everybody understood where my faith was. You know what I'm saying? But when you start to question your own faith because of when you're in a situation where you believe that everybody in that situation is sharing that faith, they're sharing that same devotion, they're sharing that same passion for what you're doing, it can be so traumatic when you find out you're really the only one who gives you're really the only one. So
it's tough. It is one of the most horrific emotions that you feel when you find out that in order to teach.
Forgive me, I'm typing something onto Facebook.
In order to teach in a childlike mode, Christ-like mode, I would say, when you're teaching in a Christ-like mode and doing it from that angle, I will say this, it's very hard to take down who you are because you're trying to represent him and everybody wants you to just be nice, not kind. Nice means you get your way. Kind means you get the truth.
Exactly.
And I think that is a masterpiece of thinking when you think about all of why because we really hit another vein of why we do what we do as educators, because if we define that, guess what? How I test your kid, what I give your kid in report and relationship.
You're right.
How I design lesson plans and spend the time and the work. When I know my assignment in that and any other person does, that creates collaboration on teams. That causes PLCs to be meaningful, that causes walking up on the parking lot to be meaningful. That causes you to be able to smile at whomever you're working with and for, even though y'all don't have the same personalities, even though y'all on two different assignments.
Right, exactly.
And then on a state level, it causes to me when districts can define their why with the people that's God given to them. Because you said, is this spiritual? It starts to say, it creates an army of people to say, on a state level, you're going to listen to us, because we can nick some of these things. Now, I do understand that there's not enough passion still left for some and not because people don't want to be passionate, they're tired, they're broken, they're wounded.
Right.
You said something. They're the only ones. I too, we grew up together. I taught Sunday school. I taught it. I understood it. I understood that if kids could remember, and if there were certain skills that you learned, that if you took them to school, you was going to be successful. And I understood. And so I had those. When I make a kid remember a recitation of a poem, I remember, I always go back to how I better have understood and knew my meditation of scripture on Sunday morning to recite,
Right.
And now, am I trying to force church on them? No, I just know that works and it'll work. And so what I really want to gather and thought again is that we have come to a critical place. And if there was a book or one idea from some mastermind. And I appreciate all the principle that's given us foundation that was going to work without us tapping in to who's on the inside of us. We would be there by now. I think we're truly forced to bring a kingdom alignment into education. And I don't think everybody will do this. I don't think it'll all be inside of the classroom walls at all. So that's why I could appreciate having a conversation about the work that the gentleman is doing. I actually came home, got dressed, because I actually just opened a center called the Intensity Life Center.
Did you?
Yes, I did. I'm opening our launch in September. We'll have to go and do a walkthrough and do some conversations. Yes. But it's all about not allowing kids, dangling things in front of them. Hey, you can get a college degree and dangling that's extrinsic. How you don't even put this, when you're going to tap into my intrinsic self, help me. If you show me how to be peaceable and supportive and help me to know that everything, found all my gifts and skills on the inside, show me how to tap into that. You don't have to dangle a chocolate bar in front of me to read.
Exactly.
If you help me tap into my golden self, show me and support that, I'll read, I'll write, I'll do, because intrinsically, I know my worth, I know my gifts, I even know my quirks.
Exactly.
And I come at peace with that first. Then I start to push out and I start to align with what's outside in the earth realm that I can achieve on my level. If I'm ADD, ADHD, if I have this 504, don't start out telling me you want me to learn the alphabet. Start inside of me telling me there's something on the inside of you. And I know maybe you don't see the words, but let's tap into this. Let me show you what you can do. Let me show you what strengths you do have. And those students that I serve in that way, they understand that they are more than a possibility. They don't walk around saying I'm possible. It's not I'm possible. I am the possibility you're looking for.
You are the possibility, Sherry.
I'm not waiting for somebody else to help me. Let me tell you who I can help right now, where I am in this particular skin.
Absolutely.
And it's a different work, because I believe that work, that's how I taught in school. That's how I've taught in the public school this whole time, because that is why students that I have served that was sitting with SPED services that had ID titles were able to come out and become consults and pass the state test. Kids who were at pre-primary at the beginning of the year, by November, December, was reading at their grade level with understanding, not because I had the time, catching up 2 and 3 grade levels.
Right.
But now I saw this, Francis, and what happened to me this last season was I saw students do that, but they still had poverty. It had gotten so bad that they was achieving what we asked them to achieve, but they couldn't even be happy about it, because now they had been established and put into a culture that intrinsically, I took that extrinsic goal and I mastered it, but I'm broken on the inside. I'm still broken on the inside. I used all your instructional strategies. I broke down the words. I know how to decode. I can use the Elconin box, syllable boxes. I got it. But when I say, look at what you did, there was no smile. There was no bubble. And and it broke me so bad. I was like, what? And then I'm sitting there and I said, this kid has poverty. This kid has poverty. His shoes were $400. His shirt was $200. His jeans was so poverty, the mindset. So this kid has had several of my students that I saw over a course of period of time had started to live up to the low expectation that they had for so long.
I hate that. I hate that, because I have had students just literally go completely backwards. One, because something happened at home. And now somebody at school said, you're not going to do it. You weren't going to do it anyway. And now they've gone backwards. And what did I do to make that better? As an administrator, what do you do to make it better for the teacher, to help that teacher understand, hey, we're working together. We really are a team to bring this child to a point to where they're not only just academically the bomb, but they understand that it's in love, and they can also share that type of relationship with other people that they can teach it to. And this can just, the advance, I don't understand about how we don't want progress for our kids. And I am not trying to cut you off. We have probably about 15 more minutes. I really want to talk to you about this At Last program, what you just told me about your facility. I'm so excited. I'm coming. Your niece is coming with me when she comes. But we're going to come and check out your facility. But let's talk about this one that's here in Dallas that Randy Bowman has, man, he spearheaded something. And, he talked about it for a long time. He talked about wanting to do something to help build up students academically in this area. He started in his own, well, no, I won't say that. He didn't start in his own area code. Let me tell you what he did. He went just into, I'm sure just it's public record. So he went somewhere and found out, hey, this is the lowest scoring, probably on the DISD scorecard or whatever. This is the lowest scoring demographic, or this is the lowest scoring zip code. I'm going to address this zip code first. So he built to accommodate people in that zip code, families in that zip code. He's trying to make sure that those students who do not have the resources at home, whether it's just because of poverty or it's because of some other thing that's been chosen, like drugs or whatever the case, it's not going to matter. It doesn't matter. You do have to meet criteria, but he wants to help everybody. And he's talking about expanding it. I don't know how soon he's going to want to make the population larger, but right now, Randy Bowman at the facility is called At Last, and it's in Oak Cliff. I want to say, I'm talking from memory because I've read all of this. I've talked to Randy, but y'all know I don't study. I'm gonna keep it real. I research, I don't study it. I just do it. But the truth of the matter is, this man has decided there's enough of me to go around.
Wow.
Because he started, that had to start from a belief, right? You are your beliefs, basically, right? So it was enough of him to go around. And he decided there are students who are already failing. I want to get them. Yes, but what if they're not failing? What if they can do it? They just don't have the resources. What if they have to leave home? What if they don't have parents who are there consistently? Let's try to accommodate that. So his program is At Last, and he's shown some growth. There's been, I think he said 21% growth among those students who were low performing. But it's also, students who are doing fine. Yes, you want to enhance, but if they have the resources already, they're not really eligible for the program. That doesn't mean there's not a part of that whole system that can't grow into something that accommodates or treats with SEL, because that's where it started in the first place. It's starting from, let's look at the emotional standing of these kids. Let's look at where they are and see how we can help that. Right. So his whole idea, like I said, he has 16, I think right now that he houses, but he's trying to grow it. And he went through the city. Of course, he had to get that okay from the city to build, but he got everything he needed. It's a capital project. He got the funding he needed by working hard, being very, very diligent, talking to people who really wanted this in their community. What this does is speaks to something that we could do. Why can't this become a trend? Right? Why can't we normalize the community actually helping again? Because it used, there was a time when America was about community. Now, still racist, still separated, still a lot of things going on, but it was at least those enclaves. You had those enclaves where we took care of each other. Even when we were forced into those ghettos, we took care of each other. And we need to get back to that by starting with the spiritual and the emotional, because that's what's going to make the difference, especially in times like this. And
yeah. I mean, that work sounds great, because we have done the schools. I've seen them where kids, they're separated. You don't look like everybody else. So we go out and we create schools of success.
She said, you don't look like everybody else.
The kids go home alone, and they go home and we shorten their days, and we say public school is not, for the kids who didn't look, public school wasn't for them. So when I hear that idea of being able to meet the needs in a holistic way, where these kids are being given an opportunity holistically,
Exactly.
you're you're monitored, your well-being, your welfare, given a way to practice those skills in a way that that's big, that would quickly fix the cause. That is why that to me is literally bringing wholeness and not just healing.
Agree.
I think it's making them completely whole, because
Okay.
I mean, we do some healing, but are we whole? But if a child can get that, and here in Texarkana, I would say that our population of students who are parents, not that a lot of parents who I would say would look at that market wouldn't be the parents who don't love their kids. It would be the parents who say, I love your kids. I can, what, if they can get that opportunity and house there, because I've done all I can do and I can trust that as a method. I believe that, it could be a very much a new trend, an idea. Boarding schools was something that people did a very long time ago, and it was the elite thing to do.
It was.
Many people went to boarding schools because of behavior, not just because they were smart, or because of things that they needed. And when I think about that, what if there was a way, right, to bring a level of rehabilitation? And
that's exactly what he's trying to do.
And rehab the mind, the soul, the spirit, and cause kids to have academic and social emotional success, and bring that as a model. Until we can, and I know that, of course, people say, well, can't do that for every kid, but not every kid needs it.
Right.
Not every kid needs that, but I do feel like we are at that place, right? At the alarming rate that our kids are not having an answer. It is a very scary time to live in. Like you sitting now saying, what kind of graduating senior will I be? Now, let's just talk about the kid who's in a nice formative home. What about the kid who isn't? It's more pressure now for a parent to figure out how to do all that kid needs and to have that level of support, that keen of an eye to say, let me hit the bullseye with 10. I think that those are ideas that educators in public schools, sometimes they say, oh, they do need that. But if that was offered and there was a collaboration to say, hey, these are some kids that funding should go to you. Right. Because we're not going to be able to meet all of their needs at this point. And we only have a window of opportunity of another year before it's over. Before we really, I mean, what a beautiful plan that could be. And I do feel like with all my heart, that trend is more likely to bring a level of success to catch more kids, if it ever catches on, and I pray that it does, than after school programs and things like that.
Oh, agreed. I agree. I agree. A lot of after school programs end up being just tutoring. But here, like the program that I work for, Big Thought, I've been in love with Big Thought for years, but they just all the way across the board, every age group that they work with and all demographics, whether you're, whether you're poor, you're rich, whatever you got, they are about, one, that SEL, two, the whole child, that holistic experience, because, they're bringing the arts, but our whole goal is to make sure that academic person is so academically ready that when you move into the arts, all of it works together to build your academics and your artistic skills, so that you're able to meet the world with you're able to meet whatever those challenges are, but you ain't got to go into it saying, I'm going straight to Harvard, I'm going straight to Yale. That may not be your path. Your path may be something different that starts with working with the skills that you have learned.
And the thing about it, that's what my center does, is to help kids from the beginning understand I can be a millionaire sweeping the floor if that's my call.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no shame in what we become.
Exactly.
I mean, really, it does. Who created the toothpick? Is he rich?
I would think so. But what if he's not?
What a flaky, and even if he's not, but because that's ultimately the extrinsic thing we think about. But what a flaky idea, but how powerful.
Right. Right.
And so when we start to think about where our kids start in such small concepts and principles, if we don't laugh at them, at their mindsets, their behaviors too early, and if we're not so Sarah-minded that we think it's not possible, even though it's been a long time, you know, that this thing cannot be birthed, that you cannot birth who you was supposed carry what you carry, what you're supposed to birth. I believe that will come a different way. I think education will come a different way. If we treat every kid that what they're carrying can be birthed, they can come out of places and ideas that's strange from us. And I started out saying, we don't have to live without the answer, because many of the answers that we have is the ingenuity of a kid that was silent to us because we did not hear them in the way they needed to learn and be approached. And is the value that we have found in the walls of our society to say that, listen, this is going to be a clumsy statement for some, but I'm going to say it with power. Education is something, but it is not everything if you don't understand it. Education cannot be everything a kid needs if you don't even understand what's housed in education. Social academic success and social emotional learning, intrinsic values, all of those are concept, holistic teaching, you know, all of those are things that matter. And you don't get that when you go to college to become a teacher. That has to come out of your spirit.
Exactly.
You have to be given that kind of, you get knowledge when you go to college, but wisdom can only come from God.
Absolutely. I absolutely love how you have tied this in, and you know, I just think that anybody who is willing to be open to new ideas and hear how we can make a difference, I think this will be important for them to know is that, one, whether you're teaching to a test or not, are you teaching a child? Are you teaching? Are you actually teaching? What's your why? You know, be sure of what your why is. And if your why is not something that makes you feel like you want to dance and jump and get out of bed and you just see the sunshine every day, no matter what is happening in that classroom, you see that sunshine and you can figure out ways to pull it out. If none of that is happening for you, start over.
Yes.
Start over. Everybody's not a teacher. You know, you got a lot of people who are awesome as far as giving advice, counseling, doing things that will help someone move along and progress, but everybody's not a teacher. And you know, my last principal, basically that's what she said about me. But Tina, guess how many years I had before this person ever had an opportunity to be blessed with my spirit? I already had 27 years.
Right.
And so, and the reason I know that you can't tell me, it's the case of what you said. I'm not doing it your way, so it's the highway. I'm not going to do it your way. And I'll tell you again right now, and if I have to call your name, I'll tell you right now, boss, I won't do it your way. The reason I won't do it your way is because your way is not genuine. It's not going to teach the demographic of kids that I have, that I am charged with. And because my charge to God is greater than my charge to you, not as my fellow man, but as my boss, I'm going to do what God said do. And what he said do was love these kids first. And if I can't teach them through love, I can't teach them. Right. Period. And if you're not going to allow me to show you know, there were times I would be standing in my classroom speaking to a child who was embarrassed about being, you know, whatever, speaking to a child, trying to soothe the child. And here comes my principal down the hallway saying, Miss Thomas, you're not outside your door. No, I'm not, because a child on the inside of my room needs me. You didn't look at that. You didn't care about that. You thought I was sick because I was intimidated by you. That's where it started. I was intimidated. I didn't feel the intimidation. I knew you were intimidating me. And because I was stuck in a situation because you guys were as not honest as you claim to be, because you guys were conspirators, I knew that I would lose my job if I told the truth about what was really happening. But when it came to a point of me losing my life, because now I have an aneurysm. I now have an aneurysm since that experience. If it comes to me losing my life and me doing what you said me doing what you tell me to do, hey, I'm gonna holler at you. You can't be my boss. You don't need to be anybody's boss, but you can't be my boss. Because first I'm gonna love God and know that he loves me. Then I'm gonna give what I know from God to those kids so that they can receive it. Because if they're not open to it, what the hell do they want to know about 9 + 9 for if I'm not able to explain to them why in the world you can't have 9 of these popsicles and 9 of these, you can't have all of them together. Why? I know you're hungry. Do I need to feed that need? Do you understand what I'm saying? This is what I just ran down to you. This is a typical morning in my classroom. A typical first 10 minutes in my classroom. Miss Thomas, I'm hungry. Is breakfast here yet? Miss, how it goes. Okay, so I need to meet that need first. Because if that child is sitting in my classroom hungry, hot, cold, running nose, back hurting, stomach, whatever is going on, that child is not paying attention to what I'm giving them.
Absolutely.
And you want me to ignore the most important thing. You want me to give you some data. Let me give you some. No, I'm not. I'm nice. I said this show was going to be, more professional.
Well, one of the things that I'll say, as we're, I know we're closing off here, but people don't want to know how much you know until they know how much you care. Okay. You can know a whole bunch of things, but if I don't know you care, you can't teach me. A kid, they want to know how much you care before they want to know how much you know. And if otherwise, it's a fear-based teaching.
It is.
It becomes as dysfunctional as any household. So sometimes you gotta quit being the princess teacher who think you know it and you never ever crossed over to the other side of the tracks, which is a book that I started writing is what's on the other side of the tracks, and most people don't know. When you cross over the other side of the tracks, if you never go over, you don't know if it's mansion. If you don't come to my side of the track, you don't know if I live in a mansion or if I live in a tent. Because you never came to see. You judge the book by what you thought. And sometimes what's on the other side of that thing of my why I act the way I act, which is some trainings that I do so that people don't respond like this when you're on a team. If you don't ever get to that, and you know what's so sad? That's a 2-minute conversation.
That is very sad. It's very sad that we don't bother to take the time to have that conversation just so that we can interact better with one another. Yes. I agree.
Conversation, that could be had at the beginning.
The very beginning.
And it's a simple, hey, how are you doing? No, how are you really doing?
Right.
And it's okay for you to tell me, okay, well, I'm going to support you till you get out of that. And I tell people this all the time. I may have the problem one day, I may have it 50, but if you love me, if I have it 200, you're there. Right. It's not hurry up and get well. It's here to support me because a lot of times, and that's the times we're living in right now. I work with a lot of teachers who were lazy. I know they were lazy, but I didn't let the other kids in her class suffer because she was lazy. I just got underneath her and said, you're a little bit lazy, but I'm gonna help you. Mm-hmm. Because everybody who wakes up into a certain personality didn't choose it. It chose them, and they are trying to do it as they go. Because some people, they had a SEL too. They have learned helplessness, but that don't mean that they want to stay that way. They just hadn't had any to come alongside and help them. And so I said this early, when broken teachers are teaching, they're still coloring, but it may not be a full shade. I believe that we have a lot of work to do, but I believe that we learn so much from the students who we teach. Oh. And the climates that we teach in, if we're open and we're watching, and it will bring a balance one day. One day, the coming together is going to have to be like this. We accept each other as educators, and we love each other that way because we all we got. But when we banish each other to islands, whether leaders doing it to somebody, Agreed. Then our nation starts to suffer because I don't know if they look, but you can't hardly find people coming into this field and staying. People are leaving.
So right here at the end where we are, because we're going to have to stop here in a minute. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I want you to tell the people, Tina, this has been, for me, this is an awesome experience because I begged you like a year ago to, hey, let's talk about this. Let's, and now that I'm set up and I'm ready, I appreciate you being one of my first guests. I appreciate you being so forthcoming and staying honest like you always are. And I appreciate you letting it be known that whether you're in Texarkana, Dallas, wherever you are, you got to put something with something to make something happen as far as education is concerned, right? Tell the people, I would like for you to tell everybody really now who you are, where you're from. You could tell them who I am too if you want to, but you don't have to. But also some of the stuff, just a couple of the programs, especially your new center. Let's talk about that, and then we'll get off the air. We'll go ahead and
presently, I am working in public education still. At this moment, I do interventionist work, which is going in, finding root causes between students and teachers, pulling students out. Of course, tier 3 work. People know what that is for the most part if you're an educator. But alongside that, my life work is really, I have a ministry for many, many years, 30 plus, called Zoe Ministries, which is just the life and breath of God, meaning anything that's not comforted or that's not breathing. For me, my life work is, it can't be dead if it's supposed to be living. and somebody's got to breathe on it, breathe in it, and pump. Hagar may be in the field crying because she is out of appointment, but God sees her, and so she's just as important as the Sarah is to me. Married to Abraham, Hagar the concubine, and if you're not spiritual, you don't know that story. But there are two sets of people, some who we've discredited and say, you don't belong here, some we accept. I am that bridge. And so some of the programs that I've done, we do a camp called Ghetto Conversations, and it's really finding the kid in you. And it's to help kids stay motivated, to understand that. And we use Tonka trucks, Barbie dolls, all of that to bridge the gap between this 21st century child to be so smart, to show them how to channel their energy back to be motivated. And it's all team collaboration. It's a big program. We love it. I have a group called Rispa's House, and it's a new launch that I'm going to be launching at the building. And it's for boys. It's for women and boys. Not
What's
men.
the name of it?
Rispa's House, which is Rispa out of the Bible.
Yeah, Rispa's House. I got you.
And it has to do with boys who don't even understand why I'm angry, what's going on with me. And it's not even the sins of your fathers. It's just an aggression. Something jumped on you. You didn't jump on it. But it's to teach them how to bury those things and how to properly bury them. What am I going to do with this anger? And the way Rispa House work is they come and we prepare a meal together. We sit down, we talk, we chat, we fold our house up at the end of the day, which is whatever we've used in that setting. And they actually come together and we create a home within a home, which is solitude. You're never alone, you're peaceful. And we literally, not just coping skills, but it's a way for them to say, I'm strung up and I'm making an open show. Every time I blow up, everybody talk about it, but everybody tell me I shouldn't do it. But we talk about why is that happening? Okay, you know where that came from? And I really explain.
You hit your button, you're on mute.
So we break those cycles, and so many other programs. We have ICE. ICE is a program that houses a way for kids to do networking. Spiritual entrepreneurship is what it is. So they
awesome.
And then they connect with one another. So you'll have if there's going to be a singer and she's having her first show, the graphic designer makes a post. The caterer is going to create her food, and all of the kids, they position themselves in posture. They first go through a 6 to 12 week program, and then we do that particular work. So lots of things. We'll have to get together again and talk about it. And
absolutely.
Then, those are some of my key babies that we're going to be launching out of.
Why does that keep happening?
Services does not help bring what needs to happen to the whole child and the whole family. But I offer services, but in that services, I tutor parents to help them learn to tutor their child, And so that's a whole program that we do as well. So I've enjoyed being here. I really, really have. Frances has been in my life. One of the funniest stories that I have is she was teaching me how to drive a stick. She is a teacher.
Oh, don't tell everybody.
I drove all over town, and then on my way home, I forgot everything I knew. She was calling me, I said, "You supposed to?" I was like, I can't remember what to do. But if there's anybody that supports the work and the heart of God to bring Him glory and keep a channel of just be who you are and win. That's Francis. I see her do it. I'm glad she's doing it now. I don't know anybody that could be more of an eloquent, phenomenal writer, speaker, trainer, thinker.
Oh, thank you.
Just have not ever, never. I don't think she needs 2 more lives to tap out all that she has to give, but she would have to live a long time to get it all out. But it is there, and for those that are listening, please follow this work and follow this work. And I mean, these conversations, you don't have to be in a big fancy anything to be important. And I think this conversations are very important to have. And for those that are needing healing and broken, they need someplace that they can come and know it's okay, to get back into life, So I appreciate it. Appreciate you inviting me.
Listen, I want you guys, people in Texarkana, if anybody in Texarkana is listening, you guys really jump on these programs, find out how you can be a part of, even if you want to just be a volunteer. If you have something to bring to the table, talk to Tina, get in touch, figure out which one of these programs you'd like to be a part of, if that is a possibility. Also, make sure your child is getting every benefit that they possibly can from what is available to you in that area, because it is a small area compared to these, Dallas, Austin, but the people there are just as important. The babies there are just as important. Those people getting ready to go off to college, or who are at college age, or who are at the age to leave high school, they're just as important. Okay. So I want you guys to get behind her, all of her programs. I'm coming to be nosy just as soon as I can. Darian lives there now. Darian is there because of his job. So, I'll be crashing his party sometime. So I get a chance to see y'all.
Good.
But I look forward to seeing your facility. I mean, actually seeing the center. And should I ever, if he mess around and find me a house in Texarkana,
yes,
you just gained somebody else for your organization, period. Hey, tell Pat, and hey, tell everybody, but kiss my Pat for me, please.
I will do it. And this has been so good. I can't wait till the next time.
Look, I'm so glad to know you're willing to come back, because that's definitely the plan. I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you, darling.
Huh.
Bye-bye.